All right. Welcome to the Future Jam. I'm Mike, and I'm here with a room.
He's all alone in a room. There's nobody else in here.
I'm here with just the room. And Harrison, why are you still here?
Apparently,
Explain yourself.
I talk so much that this is just like a release valve that I just need in my life, because otherwise it just gets like backed up. And I mean, people just need to hear me, I think, is really what it comes down to. I guess I might be a bit entertaining. I don't know. I'm not exactly sure either.
So if it wasn't for this podcast, you'd be stopping strangers in the street and just give them the rundown?
Well, do people know how I even showed up on here? I mean, I was just like rambling on a street corner for like hours a day, every day. And Mike, he brought me in, he saved my life. He was like, look, wow. I have a microphone that you can ramble into, and I think it will change your life. I thank you.
And Tyler,
yo,
he's back from the Mars episode.
Yep, back from Mars.
That was like 5 or 6 episodes ago, too.
It's been a while.
Yeah, and Tyler loves space, so this is another space-related episode. He left his 4 kids.
At 5.
5 kids. Wow.
It's close enough.
You can't even keep track of them after what?
No. Well, I just had one, so it's fair you said 4.
Okay, yeah. But
beautiful girl.
She counts now, though, so that's 5.
Yeah. Yeah, she definitely counts at this point.
At what age does a person count? Once your family gets so big, it's like, no.
She's
once
been here.
Once they can do the dishes.
Yeah, that's when they count for something.
Oh my gosh.
Once they can mow the lawn for you.
All right, let's put some bets on how long it's going to be before Mike has some kids after a comment like that.
Yeah, today we're going to be talking about space mining. And I guess it sounds kind of ridiculous if you think about it. But it's a probability and I guess a possibility very soon, I think.
Maybe not like soon. Well, if you say soon, like 20 years soon or 100 years soon, because the thing is, as far as like technology goes, it's going to be a necessity. I mean, we're running out of resources, we're using resources, we're finding new ways to ruin our resources here, so it's going to eventually have to lead to looking elsewhere. But 20 years, 50 years, 200 years, what do you think?
I think they're taking these early steps right now to research it and to figure out what exactly we're going to do and how it's going to look. Tyler said that NASA was looking to...
So NASA has plans for space mining, but it's more for... It's out of a necessity to accomplish NASA's goals in exploring the solar system. Less so out of, I think, gathering resources for Earth.
NASA's trying to get super, super rich. They're sick and tired of just getting these like pennies and little like scraps of tax
congressional
payers
scraps
money. They're going in for the big kahunas. They're seeing these diamonds floating around in space, and they're going to go wrangle these bad boys in.
Well, right now they're just doing feasibility reports. Like they're just seeing if it's even feasible or if it's worth the amount of investment that you would put in it to get some sort of return. So right now, that's what NASA is doing, and this mission they're doing in 2020, 2021.
Go ahead and name it. It's the ARM mission.
Yeah, it's the ARM mission, and this mission right now is just they're sending out probes, basically, and with those probes, they're gonna see like what type of minerals are actually on. I guess they've targeted an asteroid.
Yeah, they've targeted something. They have something they want to go to, and I think they're building the craft to go. Okay. I don't know the exact location. I know what Mike's talking about. That thing
This is like a giant iron ore.
It's one of the only solid iron objects. It doesn't have like a mantle and stuff, and
yeah,
a ton of metal. They think it was a core of something, and then it got hit, and it blew away all the rock, and somehow the core stayed together.
Gotcha. Whenever you're coming up with an idea or a concept, you need to first know why would you even want to do this in the first place, right?
Yeah, it's good to know a motivation to kind of aim your focus, because why do something? Well, why do you want to get first place? Well, because it's awesome.
Yeah, let's for right now, let's totally forget about the minerals we could get off of these asteroids. So iron ore, platinum, all those different metals and resources, let's forget about that right now. I guess the initial reasons why they want to mine these asteroids is for resources for propulsion and to get supplies for missions that go outside of, further away from Earth. So they want to use these asteroids as jumping. Think of the
leapfrogging type of.
Yeah, think of space as a desert, and as you're traversing a desert, you're going to run out of supplies.
Absolutely.
Think of the asteroids that are out there as oases.
So now the thing is, if they're doing this kind of leapfrogging thing, are these missions going to be more like colonial type missions, or are these going to be more exploratory missions?
I think a little bit of both. There's going to
be actually people on some of these spacecraft.
I think exploratory at first.
Okay,
and then maybe,
that would make sense.
I would think that would be.
I knew who would sign up for that. Hey there, you've been training your entire life. You're the top class of everything. You're the peak of human evolution. All right, now get in this spacecraft. You're never coming back, and you got a 1% chance of coming back or living.
Well, if you think about it this way, just to get to Mars and to other planets and to explore farther out, you need fuel. You need a lot of resources. And according to NASA and research, there's water on asteroids or certain asteroids.
Right. And I think something else that you could bring into this is when you reach escape velocity right now to go on a mission, you have to carry all the fuel for going there and coming back if you want to return. Whereas if you could mine it on the way, you wouldn't have to reach escape velocity with return fuel. And
so what you're saying is right now, if we do a mission, we have to load up the rocket with all the materials and all the supplies,
all your food,
and get that off
all
Earth.
Your water, everything,
and
fuel.
It takes a significant amount of energy to get that off of Earth.
Well, SpaceX actually has been working on that problem for a little bit, and I was listening to this interview with Elon Musk, and I can't believe I didn't think about this earlier, because I always had my mind focused on a moon base and stuff, and maybe in the future that is where it will go. But what he basically described is kind of like the airplanes here on Earth that can refuel in midair. What he said is actually a really simple solution is you send out a spacecraft into near Earth orbit. So you've already did the escape velocity, the hardest part, and then you have a supplementary vehicle come out, and its only mission is to refill that other spacecraft. And then from there, basically, uses the Earth's orbit, and then just boom, boomerangs right out of there. And then, once you're in space, friction, hardly a problem. There's much less to worry about once you're out there. The whole atmosphere is the biggest thing you have to work through.
Yeah, and just extracting that water from asteroids, you can separate the hydrogen from the oxygen. So you can separate those two and create rocket fuel.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
Because I've heard. Yeah,
that's the goal.
That's the goal.
Yeah, I've heard two ideas. There was that idea, and then the whole idea of just using the water and basically just using it as a propellant itself.
Yeah, so that's, I guess, a way to get propellant to go further. So say your ship runs out of fuel halfway to its destination, then it can stop off at an asteroid. And I'm not even sure how long that process would even take, or how much energy just separating those particles and creating the fuel.
Right. It might not even be worth it if you have to actually do the whole separation process. That's why when I heard the whole water idea, it kind of made sense. Because honestly, I don't know if you guys did this in school. One of the things is you do the rocket build And all that you do in that is, you make your rocket, you put an egg in it, and because you want to protect the egg too, and it's set on this apparatus that just puts a bunch of water, like pressurized water, in it, and like we were kind of saying, is when you're out in space without friction, I mean, all you need is something to just jettison out of there.
And I think the whole goal is just to get chickens into space. Those eggs.
Just like in elementary school, they're gonna the first rocket they send out, they're gonna put like a little egg inside there, like held in with some like rubber bands and like tissue paper. Like, but did the egg break? No, but it can refuel itself and it can go about 50 light years, which is further than anything's ever gone. But did the egg break?
Yeah, and in our Mars episode, we covered a lot of that as far as getting from point A to point B and what it will take, and I think we covered like the length of time. It's crazy the amount of time it takes to travel across space, and it's hard to imagine. So that's why these little stopping points where you can stop and refuel, that's why it could end up being important. So I guess that's the first step, is using them as points to like a rest stops almost.
Definitely.
So that's the
like
first step.
Yeah, a little truck stop.
Well, and if I can say, on the ARM mission, I wrote this down, Mike, but we kind of talked about it. You had mentioned that the mission got bumped. It got bumped up. I think it did because NASA's efficient, right?
Yes.
They always have to have multiple reasons to do something. So they said it actually stands for Asteroid Redirect Mission, which doesn't sound like mining, does it? Yeah, they're going to demo several things. They're going to demo gravity tractor deflection.
Wow.
So that is basically shielding Earth from a potential impact. And then we've got demo high-power solar electronic propulsion and demo utilization of space resources. So that's the mining aspect of it. Basically mining something and bringing it back and using it. So it's a multifaceted mission. They're trying to accomplish several things. Yeah.
So yeah, NASA's testing. I guess their thought is they could put rockets onto, or like somehow attach rockets to the asteroid itself and steer it in a way, or like, sometimes asteroids are spinning fast in space, and to be able to dock with it, it would be very difficult to dock with an asteroid as it's spinning. So by attaching rockets or some sort of propulsion device to the asteroid itself, they can kind of slow its spin or slow it down a little bit,
stabilize it.
And you mentioned they moved it up, and the reason why they moved it up is they have like very precise measuring software that will tell them like best points of attack. So like they can measure trajectories, because a lot of times they use gravity to slingshot their crafts.
Oh, definitely.
They always do. So
it's free energy.
They did the measurements, and they found that if they moved it up, they will get a better trajectory on that asteroid. So that's the whole reason why they moved it up, is to they save a lot of money and they get there quicker. On Earth, if we're doing a mission, we have to worry about like weather and different factors like that. So if we miss our mission launch, that can throw the whole schedule off, like big time. Because they have plans set in place to be able to get use the gravity to push them certain directions, and if they miss that window, then they might have to wait another 3 months to
sometimes longer.
Years.
Oh my gosh! I mean, when you start looking at all these like star maps and different things like that, I mean, thank goodness we have computers now to track these movements, because I can't even imagine. I mean, that's why there's such weird architecture from the ancient times, because all these like people are like noticing these patterns in the sky, and they're trying to map these things. Well, these computers are actually able to do it at a much higher level, and now we're able to use these things like the orbit or the gravitational pulls and stuff like that for these sorts of mission. Cool to see.
The next thing would be kind of identifying asteroids. There's tons of asteroids out there. I pulled up a couple. There's Type C, and that's more than 75% of known asteroids fit into this category. The composition of Type C asteroids is similar to that of the Sun, without the hydrogen, helium, and other volatiles. So I guess Type C asteroids are like just your basic rock. If you grab this asteroid, you probably wouldn't be able to pull much value off of it at all. So 75% of asteroids out there are pretty much worthless. And then you go into the Type S, and about 17% of asteroids are this type. These contain deposits of nickel, iron, and magnesium. And then there's Type M, which is a very small number of asteroids, and they contain nickel and iron.
Which ones contain the diamond?
There's a whole planet supposedly that's a diamond. I'm serious.
I want to get that planet, and I want to put a little gold band on it and put it on my finger and be like, there we go. Now that's a diamond ring.
So the
Feel a lot of bling.
So the idea is to just, because they're so far apart, and picking the wrong one could end up like costing you tons and tons of money, right?
Oh yeah. Having that technology to be able to predict what's going to be on an asteroid is going to be life or death. I mean, just like being in a desert, like the analogy you were saying earlier, if you get confused between real water and an oasis, you're dead. So if we're sending drones and these piloted or unpiloted, types of craft out there, and the readings are wrong, and they go to an asteroid with, very little fuel left, and it turns out that there's not water on that asteroid, I mean, that's a huge deal. And that was one of the things I was kind of looking into, is like, how do they know what is on here? And it kind of boggles my mind, like, talking about these diamond planets. How do they know that was a diamond planet? Like, what sort of apparatus is able to read that? Do you know?
Yeah, they kind of analyze the light that's reflected back from it. So,
really?
Yeah,
from that far away, they can tell.
Yeah, they use what's called a telescopic spectroscopy, and it analyzes the light reflected from the asteroid surface to find out what might be in there.
So might be. Now, is that based off of just like testing those similar materials here on Earth? I'm assuming that's how you would have to, right?
I think in that regard, you could take a common sense approach. And obviously a comet made out of ice is going to have a much lighter signature in the sky. You're going to get a lot more light bouncing back from it. Whereas something dark is something heavier.
Yeah, but I mean, they're talking with such specifics that you were talking about a solid iron asteroid, like pure iron. I mean, some of these asteroids, I'm sure, I mean, you just think of Earth rocks. I mean, most of them you have to find an ore and then derive the certain metal out of that ore. I mean, the chances of finding these asteroids that are like a pure substance, or such a pure, like a percentage pure enough to know that it is iron, or it is nickel, or it is diamond. I mean, I find that.
Well, I don't
know, man. That's pretty wild. I'm glad there's some smart people on this Earth, because I'm sure not one of them. I try to be.
I think they're going to send probes.
Yeah,
those
they'll
are small
send
probes that basically stick a stick in there and
so just
see the composition.
They'll do the spectrometer type of thing, and then they'll send the drones out just to like ensure, and then they'll just be disposable type of things. Yeah, I guess
they'll mark ones that they think would be worth investigating further. So they'll mark them, and then they'll send out the probes, and then once they get that data returned, then they will
spend
big money. And if you think about it, when you see certain types of metals, other types of metals will also probably be there.
Yeah.
So if you see iron, there's also most likely going to be platinum. The reason why platinum is something that we could mine in space, or could be important to mine in space, is it's a very useful metal. And on Earth, a lot of it has not dissolved, but like moved more towards the center of the Earth. So you have to dig pretty deep, and it's very costly to get platinum.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a precious metal. So I guess you would kind of have to weigh the cost benefit off of this, but would it be easier to go into space and get platinum or dig 3,000 miles in the ground to get platinum?
And right now, I think with there obviously being a supply of platinum not nearly as far down as that, I think it's obvious that it's more cost effective to dig it here.
I have a feeling that's when the next stage would happen. Is the next stage would be we actually start mining these asteroids for precious metals.
Definitely.
Because I think the first stage would be we're using it for supplies for missions. But then after that, once it gets harder and harder on Earth to get those precious metals, we might look to space. And by then, we'll probably have cheaper solutions on how to get to these asteroids. And
You're right.
And to find, better ones.
Right. You can just think of the history of exploration here on Earth, and, you think of some of these explorers, they didn't completely circumnavigate the world,
like
but they were at
Columbus.
least... They were at least able to expand how we saw things. So we're going to be sending these drones out, expanding the way we see things, marking asteroids that have, precious metals that can be used later, sending back core samples, whatever we're able to do at that time. And then once our technology gets better, we'll be able to send things out to actually mine these. Now, this kind of reminds me of this story of just space exploration in general. There was this I forget exactly how the story goes, but basically it's talking about the first explorers of Mars and these other outer Earth kind of colonization missions. And it talks about just the first people that go out, they're just struggling, and it takes 2 or 3 generations. They don't quite have the whole incubation, chamber and cryogenesis type of technology under wraps. They get to their destination and there's already a city thriving. And what ended up happening was shortly after they left, technology just grew to a certain level that allowed transportation to just miraculously, just exponentially grow. And just this amplification of technology just allowed for them to just completely surpass this other mission that had left however many years earlier. And it just kind of makes me think about the possibility of these sort of asteroid, meteor type missions that can exponentially grow. I don't know. I have a lot of optimism in these sorts of things.
I think what will need to change, because currently, as I think in the 80s, we signed a treaty, the United Nations treaty, that basically states that anything in space we cannot claim and use
as a government.
So I think that's why NASA, they can't really mine themselves. They're doing these missions just to kind of test their feasibility missions right now. Their feasibility, and they can take stuff off of them, but I don't think they can use it for profit or claim this asteroid is NASA's asteroid.
Yeah, it's well, we have a flag in it.
Well, under Obama, they did sign. Obama signed an agreement basically saying that citizens of the United States could own resources mined from asteroids.
There's a company based out of California. I was trying to look up what their name was, but they are actually looking into. They claim they're trying to get their mining off the ground by 2020, 2025.
Keep in mind they're attracting investors.
They are, and they actually got a pretty substantial investor, Luxembourg.
Well, it wasn't Luxembourg basically throwing money at anyone willing to step up to mine.
Well, yeah, Luxembourg sees this big empty spot that nobody has, and they're pretty rich as far as GDP goes, right?
GDP's great.
Yeah, the GDP is great, and they want to be the first outer space nation, basically. They want to be the first nation.
Really?
They want to be the first nation to have
them-
like economy based off out of this Earth.
But it's a bold claim from a country that has no legitimate space program that I know of. I mean, I don't see Luxembourg astronauts.
It's true.
I mean, have you ever seen?
I think what they're doing is they're just throwing their money around, and whoever will take it up, like, hey, we get a little bit of. You have to say our name, and you're fine. Like, hey, discovered by this company in Luxembourg.
They're gonna be like the Red Bull of space, like
Nice.
how Red Bull
Just
has like
branding
everything to do
Sponsored
with
by
extreme sports.
Luxembourg.
The country.
Powered by Luxembourg. But yeah,
Nice.
they're really invested. They seriously are, and I guess it's going to take these forward-thinking companies and forward-thinking people to get this off the ground, and they're probably not going to see any profits off of this in the near future.
No, they spent 220 million euros
Wow.
investing in people to get this off the ground. It's a lot of money.
Yeah, they're throwing around some coin. I guess they got nothing better to do. They don't have any. I think they're one of those countries. They don't have a lot of natural
They're not gonna fight
resources
any wars
themselves.
anytime soon.
Yeah, they're kind of a smaller place. So hey,
They're a
if
bored
you-
country.
if you're from Luxembourg, I'm sorry if we're getting all of this wrong.
Yeah, comment. Tell us about your fine country. I'm sure it's great.
And your space program, I'd love to hear about it.
They might have the third best space program for all we know, or they might just have a bunch of school projects where they're shooting eggs into space. That might be what they're doing right now.
They count it.
They got the little hobby rocket and
weather balloons.
weather
Does that count?
balloons.
man?
Yeah.
I'm just gonna. I just want to say I'm gonna laugh if I find out that Luxembourg has like this great space program because I'm just.
They actually
going
already
off of-
have Elysium. Like they're actually just so far ahead of us
got a
that
Death
they're
Star.
laughing at us.
Okay, so we know already that we could get water and materials for, missions. And we know that it's feasible to mine minerals and precious items and whatnot, like sundries, various sundries.
That was awesome.
What did you say? Sundry? The various sundries.
With the accent.
Oh
It
man,
was
I wasn't
incredible.
prepared for that.
So,
Tell me,
Guys,
did you
how-
practice saying that?
no, I
before
did not.
the-
I
okay.
just, how can we get the precious metals? Like, would we move the asteroids to the Earth, like near Earth,
No
and then mine
way.
it? Or would we mine it and then slowly...
I think that's the plan: is to move it here.
That seems like it would be way too much energy.
Okay, so Tyler, you tell us how we could move the asteroid to near Earth's orbit or in Earth's orbit, and Harrison, maybe you can explain to us possibly how we could just mine it in its place and then bring the stuff back.
yeah.
So
All right.
you want to do that real
Let's hear
quick?
his ideas.
Yeah, like what would it
And
look
then I'll
like?
destroy them. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
It's not
So-
a contest.
To me, it would look like attaching something to it and then just slowly pushing it here. I mean, it sounds really simple, and I'm sure there's a lot of complication there, but you got something moving through a vacuum. It doesn't take very much force to
Move it the other
to
direction.
manipulate it. Yeah. So you would just have to know what you're doing. Like, which direction do you need to push it? How much force do you need to use to get it to the right place at the right time and eventually, obviously, slow it down? It would probably be mined in space. Like, it's not going to be mined on Earth, like on the planetary surface.
Yeah.
That'd
that
be
would-
so dangerous if
that
you
would be
shot it through
way
our
too
atmosphere.
risky.
But yeah.
Some people even, I think others have said maybe getting it into orbit around the moon and mining it there to bring it back here. And that would
Allow
probably
the
be
moon
even safer.
to kind of like slow the trajectory and
Yeah,
kind of
just
catch
kinda
it.
kind of get it
That
stable.
makes more sense.
Yeah.
Well,
Okay.
the other thing that's kind of interesting is the technology of solar sails. If you were able to attach a solar sail, which is basically solar panels for space, to these sorts of asteroids, I could see the possibility of that. But the thing is, how much time do we freaking have? Okay, so the when you're talking about these sorts of ideas about moving entire big giant planet-sized asteroids, maybe not planet-sized, but large.
They're not going to be planet-sized.
asteroids.
No,
Oh my word!
I
Well,
think
they
we're-
might be Pluto-sized.
I don't think that'd be
I don't think so.
an
But anyway.
asteroid the size of a
I don't
planet.
know. I don't know exactly the range of sizes of asteroids, but these are big giant things. I mean, how much time do we want to give for that? And so I think bits of this asteroid are being sent back to Earth, packet by packet, rather than wrangling the entire thing and bringing it back. And I see that being more, maybe not the end all be all, but at least the start of this kind of space mining, because then at least you can get some real like thrust behind these packets of materials.
I think we need to all maybe take a step back and say, everyone talks about space mining like it's this big thing coming up. It's going to be huge. How long do we have on Earth here, Mike? You and I, maybe 50 years.
Yeah.
I think we need to start crossing generations with this. Like, this is going to be something that is going to be hundreds of years in the process of getting it to perfection.
Well, right now it's the wild frontier. Space is the next wild frontier, and anything goes almost in space right now. Pirates, space pirates,
in the physical world for sure.
No, okay, so Tyler was saying we could move the whole asteroid to Earth's orbit, or safer yet, the moon's orbit.
Well, I think the benefit there is one trip out, one trip back.
Yeah, but I guess the downside to that is you're moving a whole asteroid, huge. And not all of it is going to be used. And that's a good point. The whole asteroid is not going to be used. It's just parts of it.
No. It's not going to be pure.
What are we going to do with the leftovers? Are we going to fire it back out into space?
I would just put it on the moon.
Just land it on the moon.
Just make the moon bigger and then cause larger waves and bigger shifts of tide on our Earth.
Yeah, those craters are very unsightly. Like, we almost need to smooth out the moon.
A moon makeover.
Smooth the moon project, I think. That's the next thing. That's my goal. Smooth the moon.
I think there's going to have to be societal changes for all this to work out the way we're thinking. I mean, I don't think in 200 years you're going to be bringing asteroids home to a really angry Russia and a really angry U.S. and a developing China.
No, we don't even know what the political climate's going to look like.
I think all that would have to change.
Yeah,
it would have to be a more peaceful, more unified kind of society for sure. Because when people are so divided, people get a little bit worried about each other. And I think for that kind of advance in technology, there's got to be a huge leap of moral, technological, and peaceful revolution here on Earth to realize, hey, we're all in it together.
Yeah, I think that makes sense in a way. Yeah, there would need to be some sort of stability in place
to even accomplish the goal.
To even accomplish it. It would take lots and lots of manpower and lots of people joining together to even figure this out. But the thing is if corporations take over this, corporations run outside of governments. So if governments to an extent, but if governments are warring, corporations still do their thing. Oil still gets drilled. In fact, when there's wars, stuff ramps up. So we might even mine more during times of war because we might need more resources to fuel that military-industrial complex.
I think during war is when corporations are at their least powerful. Government will tool a sewing machine factory to make pistols in a heartbeat.
Yeah, that's true.
But you're right. I do think mining is that's a wartime thing, right? You need metal.
But the thing is if we're mining, like Tyler said, around Earth, one big problem already, or even around the moon, one big problem already is space debris.
Oh, yeah. There'll be cleanup crews for sure.
Maybe they'll let it go and the moon will get like a disc, like Saturn. It'll just stay in its gravity.
Yeah, yeah. And kids, that's something to aspire to. Instead of being a janitor at school where your parents will look at you and say, "What did you do with your life?" you can be a space janitor. A space janitor. That's high up there.
That's right.
That's high level janitor.
You cleaning up those like bits of gold from those asteroids.
Like a 5-star general, but for janitoring.
An astro custodian.
Yeah, you could even come up with a fancy name for it. Yeah. Astro custodian.
Yeah.
Make him feel extra special.
We're talking way, way out in the future, probably. To me.
So fantasy hour.
All right, folks, you heard it here. That entire time you've been listening, it was all just fantasy.
Yeah,
and it was
tell us what you
worthless.
really think. Honestly, like this is kind of a little bit of fantasy. Like we're entertaining these thoughts, and a lot of this is not going to happen, or it's probably not worth our money. We could probably invest our money better in other things.
Yeah, I'd say so, but I think it'll be first used for space exploration. I think it's important to be able to sustain yourself in the solar system for long periods of time, going from one point to the other. Freedom of movement, less time constraints on missions. That's what I think is the big positive for it right now. Maybe in the future there'll be a financial positive, but that remains to be seen. It'll be in the far future, in my opinion. I think it's going to be.
What do you think, Harrison? What's your last thought on this?
I honestly think we will see it in our lifetime, the beginnings of this. We've already seen England, I think it was England, they were able to land something on a moving asteroid.
I think they crashed.
They crashed.
Okay, well, hey, crashing, they hit their target. Okay, so that's an accomplishment. And so with the rate of technology and how it grows, man, like honestly, I continue to be astonished with how things are going. I just think that it requires a certain level of peace, like as far as like politically and between countries, cooperation and morality. I think space is an optimistic approach to bringing countries together, and I think that we have to take into account the possibilities of technology being used for evil. But at the same time, good people are going to use it for the better. And that's my final thought. Is I'm optimistic about this kind of stuff. It'll help people.
My final thoughts are this. I think usually we wait till the very last minute for everything. So I feel like we'll only do it if it's absolutely necessary and we find that there's something in it for us. Like, people tend to be selfish. So if a company thinks they can cut a corner and get precious metals off of these asteroids cheaper than they can dig them out of our own Earth, or maybe they can avoid taxes, all sorts of things, they're going to do it. I feel like it's going to happen when somebody's going to profit off of it.
So once the motivations align and the profitability aligns,
then it's going to happen. I feel like most things like this don't happen unless there's some sort of money that can be generated because of this.
Right. And at the same time, like you were saying, without having to worry about profits and that kind of thing, that's when governments kind of thrive, because governments don't really care about
I think
profits.
It's going to be a governmental thing for a while for exploration.
I
then
think
we'll
we're
move
going to
into
use
corporate.
it as supplies for exploration first, and then once people can figure out the twist on how to profit off of it, that's what's going to happen.
And the technology kind of catches up to the idea.
Yeah. And
so are you guys going to be depressed if you don't get to grow up to be space pirates? Like if we're like a generation or two behind that kind of possibility?
Yeah, it's true. If we're mining for precious materials in space, you would think, since space is the wild frontier, there'd be people out there just to try to snag a couple ships. And
imagine like all the people
goods
that moved out to California for the gold rush. It would be like that for space.
Space Gold Rush, the game. I feel like that's gonna be a game before reality.
That'd be fun.
I know it'll be a game way after we've already achieved space mining.
Yeah, that's true. So, all right. Thanks for joining us today. Thanks, Tyler. Thanks, Harrison.
Yep.
Please, I'm not going to say please. That sounds needy.
Please. Pretty please. Oh, my gosh.
All right,
need it.
Join us on our Facebook page. Like it and follow. We'll put updates up there frequently on what's happening, what's coming soon, what just recently came out. And then if you want to join our Facebook group, that's more designed around conversations. You can send us stuff you don't like or stuff you do like. And a little segment we're going to test out here is what we got wrong. So tell us what we got wrong about this episode, and we will talk about it briefly in the next.
1 minute. Mike, we got things wrong? What are you saying? Please tell us what what we got wrong. Because please make fun of us. I enjoy being made fun. Rip into me. I enjoy it.
So join us on our Facebook group. Join in on the conversation. We don't have one going yet, so you could be the one to start it.
Oh my God.
You can follow us on Twitter at The Future Jam, on Instagram at The Future Jam, and we'll be back next week on Thursday. That's the new day.